A man's home was shattered at 4 a.m., not by criminals, but by masked enforcers from a fake HOA he never belonged to. At the center of it all was Henry Moss, a power-hungry president who used fear and forged authority to silence anyone who questioned him. But what Henry didn't know was that his target was a federal sniper instructor, trained, prepared, and not easily intimidated. And just wait until you see how this standoff unraveled, and why justice in the end hit harder than any broken window. 4:03 a.m., I was pulled from sleep by a sound I'll never mistake, the sharp hollow crack of tempered glass giving way. There was a moment of silence. Then came the unmistakable clatter of metal on tile. Someone had forced entry through the kitchen window, not quietly, not carefully, deliberately. My brain snapped online instantly. I wasn't disoriented. Years of training don't vanish with sleep. They activate. I rolled out of bed, barefoot, heartbeat already steady. My wife, Taylor, gasped behind me. "Stay down," I told her, firm, low, controlled. She knew the tone. She dropped to the floor without question. I moved to the nightstand, opened the biometric safe. The SIG was there, suppressor already mounted. Condition 1, no hesitation. I glanced at the security monitor above the dresser. Thermal feed. 3 heat signatures inside, moving fast. They weren't professionals. Their spacing was wrong. Their body language? Confident, but erratic. One of them turned into the hallway. I froze the frame. Vest, patch. Lettering, HOA enforcement. That made me stop. HOA, as in Homeowners Association? That made 0 sense. My house isn't under any HOA jurisdiction. We bought this property specifically because of that. And still, they were here, armed, coordinated, and in my home. Downstairs, I heard drawers being yanked open. Someone was searching through the kitchen, fast and messy. Another voice, muffled, said something like, "Start with the fridge." Then I heard it, a short yelp and the sound of claws skidding. My dog, Juno. One of them had shoved her aside. I felt my jaw lock. I stepped into the hallway, silent, swept the corners. The lead intruder had just taped a printed document to the refrigerator door. His back was to me. I could see enough to tell. It was a fake order of inspection, maybe 10-point Times New Roman font, full of made-up citations. That was the moment everything clicked into place. These weren't police. These weren't even real private security. They were imposters, pretending to be something they weren't. And they had just broken into the wrong house. I got a clearer look at their faces as they moved through the house. They wore balaclavas, not full face, just enough to hide intent, but not identity, not from me. The man in the middle, heavier build, rigid posture, shoulders tight with self-importance. I recognized him. Henry Moss, the so-called HOA president. Same guy who rang my doorbell at 6:30 in the morning last summer, waving a clipboard and threatening me with fines over unmaintained landscaping. My lawn had been trimmed 2 days earlier, but that wasn't the point. He wanted compliance, obedience. I remember calmly stepping out in uniform and explaining that I worked for a federal sniper training program, that I wasn't intimidated by clipboard theatrics. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make threats. But I also didn't show deference. That's what bothered him most. Henry wasn't used to being told no, especially not by someone he couldn't control. Now, here he was, armed, masked, flanked by 2 accomplices, storming into my home in the middle of the night. He didn't knock. He didn't call. He just came in. And I understood exactly why. 2 weeks earlier, during the HOA's quarterly meeting, I'd stood up and questioned their accounting. Not loudly, just publicly. I'd presented evidence, actual transfer records, showing association funds quietly redirected into private accounts linked to Henry's relatives. It wasn't personal. It was just the truth. But the room got quiet. People started asking questions. And Henry lost something that night. Control. Now, under the pretense of enforcement, he was trying to get it back, using fear, not facts. To him, this wasn't a home invasion. This was a warning. His mistake was assuming I'd still be quiet. I moved with purpose, no hesitation. The first intruder stepped into the dining room, didn't see me at his flank. I closed the distance in a second and drove my elbow into his throat. Controlled, non-lethal, but enough to drop him and take the fight out of his lungs. The second caught the beam of my weapon light, full in the face, blinding. He raised his hands reflexively. Textbook mistake. I advanced and swept his legs. He hit the floor hard, weapon sliding across the tile. That left Henry. He reached for something in his vest. I didn't wait to see what. I was already on him. He froze when he saw the muzzle leveled between his eyes. I train people to defend this country. You really thought I'd panic? I said, voice low, steady. His hand stopped mid-motion. He understood. Within minutes, all three were zip-tied and down. No further aggression. I checked vitals. No major injuries. They were still breathing, conscious, and very aware of how badly they'd underestimated the situation. I didn't touch anything else. No sense in contaminating the scene. I called the sheriff directly, gave a clear report. Forced entry, armed suspects, situation contained. Then I waited. Calm, present, ready. 3 patrol units arrived fast. Lights off until they hit the driveway. Officers entered with rifles drawn, but it was over by then. The moment they saw the fake inspection order taped to my refrigerator, cheap paper, badly formatted text, and a logo clearly pulled from a search engine, everything shifted. They didn't need convincing. One look was enough to turn this from neighborhood dispute to criminal conspiracy. Henry tried to spin it, claiming he was enforcing a community directive. The deputies didn't buy it. Not when they saw the tools, the forged paperwork, and 3 sets of boot prints in my broken kitchen window. That night didn't end with a conversation. It ended in handcuffs and the beginning of something much bigger. As the investigation unfolded, the full scope of what Henry and his so-called enforcers had been doing came to light. For months, they had been targeting homeowners who asked too many questions or refused to play along. Forced entries disguised as inspections, threatening notices pinned to doors in the middle of the night, fake violation letters demanding payment or compliance. In one case, someone's gas line was tampered with, written off as a utility issue. People stayed quiet, not because they didn't care, but because they were scared. Scared of fines, scared of eviction, scared of being made an example of. But that fear broke the moment I filed my report. From there, it moved fast. The sheriff's department escalated the case. The county prosecutor got involved. Then HUD stepped in. Turns out the abuse of authority extended far beyond my street. Henry's personal residence and 2 rental properties tied to his family were seized under fraud statutes. One of his crew turned state's witness within a week, testified to everything. When it went to court, I was called as a primary witness. I told the truth. Just the facts. No embellishment. The evidence spoke louder than anything I could say. Henry and the others were convicted. No plea deals, real sentences. The HOA board was dissolved. The bylaws stripped and rewritten from the ground up under court order. Neighbors I'd barely spoken to before started stopping by. Quiet handshakes, nods of respect. Some of them had lived in fear for over a year, too proud to admit it until it was over. One evening, Jack Snyder, former Navy, 2 tours, stood on my porch. We hadn't said more than a few words before, but this time he reached out, shook my hand, and said, "Didn't know you were one of us, but now we know who to count on." I didn't say much back, just nodded. Sometimes that's enough, because when trouble kicks in a window at 4 a.m., you don't wait for backup. You become it.